My name is Karimi Sunday Steve. I represent Kogi West. Mr. President, I've corrected my name severally, but they still write my surname as Karimu. My surname is Karimi, not Karim. And that is why somebody took me to court today that I'm not duly elected here. Please. You guys need to correct that. The clerk, you've noted that. Page 40. No. Page 41. Page 42. Page 43. Yes, distinguished Senator Mbigi.
Thank you, Mr. President. I remain Mpigi Barinada. I represent the people of Rivers Southeast Senatorial District. Mr. President, I stand to move a motion for the adoption of the votes and proceeding for Thursday, 6 July 2023. Mr. President, I so move.
Distinguished Senator Ekpeyan.
Good morning, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I rise. My name is Asuko Ekpeyan, Senator representing Cross River South. I rise to second the motion. Thank you very much.
Distinguished colleagues, the motion for affirmation of the votes and proceedings has been moved and seconded. Those who are in support of the motion say aye. Those against say the ayes have it. Announcements. Distinguished senators are hereby informed that the management of the National Assembly has scheduled capturing of distinguished senators for issuance of identity cards. The exercise will hold as follows: Tuesday, 11th, and then Wednesday, 12th, 11th and 12th of July, 2023. The venue will be Hearing Room 1, White House Complex, and the time will be 9 a.m. daily. You are expected to come along with valid means of identification as a senator and a photocopy of your certificates of return. This is signed by the clerk of the Senate. We have correspondence from Mr. President to the distinguished Senate. Appointment of service chiefs, Chief of Defense Staff, and other service chiefs. In compliance with the provisions of Section 18, subsection 1 of the Armed Forces Cap A20, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria, 2004, I am pleased to present for confirmation by the Senate the four nominees listed below as Chief of Defense Staff and Service Chiefs of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Chief of Defense Staff, Major General C.G. Musa. Chief of Army Staff, Major General T.A. Lagbaja. Chief of Naval Staff, Rear Admiral Emmanuel Ikechukwu Ogala. Chief of Air Staff, Air Vice Marshal H.B. Abubakar. The Senate is invited to note the current security situation of our country, which requires concerted efforts of both the legislature and the executive to ensure a well-protected nation. This informed the review of our defense architecture and appointment of new leaders to work in synergy with one another to achieve the level of optimal performance expected of the military. While I hope that the request will receive the expeditious consideration and confirmation of the Nigerian Senate, please accept distinguished Senate President and distinguished senators their assurances of my highest consideration. This is signed by His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR. In view of the fact that we don't have all our committees in place, this is hereby referred to the Committee of the Whole. Further announcements. Following the successful inauguration of the 10th Senate and the emergence of the principal officers of the 10th Senate, in line with the Senate Standing Order 95 sub A and sub 1A and 1B as amended, may I go ahead to read as stipulated therein. So I hereby announce the composition of the selection committee of the Senate as follows. Senator Godswill Akpabio, the Senate President, as chairman, and the other members are Senator Jibril Barrow, the Deputy Senate President, as vice chairman, Senator Bamidele Ope, Senator Mohammed Alindume, Senator Nweze Umahi, Senator Oyela Ashu, Senator Simon Makwom, Senator Oyewumi Olarere, Senator Darlington Wokocha, and Senator Rufai Sani Hanga. Committee on Rules and Business. This committee will have Senator Titus Tatgena Zam as chairman. Senator Yomi Kamarudin Olare will be the vice chairman. There was a slight correction there. Senator Opeyemi Bamidele will be the vice chairman as stipulated by our rules of the Committee on Rules and Business. Committee on Senate Services. Distinguished Senator Sunday Steve Karimi will be the chairman, and Distinguished Senator Williams Echeng Jonah will be the vice chairman. Committee on Ethics, Code of Conduct, and Public Petitions. Distinguished Senator Okechukwu Ezea will be the chairman, and Distinguished Senator Khalid Ibrahim Mustafa will be the vice chairman. Committee on Public Accounts. Distinguished Senator Aliu Wadada Ahmed will be the chairman, and Distinguished Senator Onyeka Peter Mwebui will be the vice chairman. Committee on National Security and Intelligence. Distinguished Senator Shehu Buba Omar will be the chairman, and Distinguished Senator Asukwo Ekpeyon will be the vice chairman. Committee on Legislative Compliance. Distinguished Senator Garba Musa Maidoki will be chairman, and Distinguished Senator Ide Dafinone Omoye. Committee on Media. Distinguished Senator Adaramodu Adeyemi Raphael will be the chairman, and Distinguished Senator Salisu Shuaibu Afolabi will be the vice chairman. In accordance with Senate Standing 95B as amended, under sundry matters and in anticipation of the possibility of receiving supplementary budgetary application, the Selection Committee has also resolved to set up the Committee on Appropriations. Distinguished Senators Adiola Solomon Olamileko will be the chairman, followed by Distinguished Senator Mohammed Ali Ndume as vice chairman. Any petitions? Leader of the Senate. Yes, Distinguished Senator, order. The clerk, please assist him.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Ezenwa Onyewuchi. I represent Imo East Senatorial District. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, my point of order is Order 41 and 51, matter of urgent public importance. If you permit me, Mr. President, I will read.
Please read.
Shall, if possible, be referred to the President of the Senate before commencement of the day's sitting. And the President of the Senate shall refuse to allow the claim unless he is satisfied that the matter is definite and urgent. That is Order 41. Order 51, Mr. President, I read, notice shall not be dispensed with in the case of a motion or in respect of any other proceeding for which notice is required, except with the consent of the President of the Senate and the general assent of senators. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I therefore would want to seek the leave of Mr. President and distinguished senators to present a matter of urgent public importance to address the low level of awareness and preparedness to prevent the outbreak of anthrax in Nigeria. I so move, Mr. President. Mr. President, with your permission, I shall proceed to move the motion, which I consider urgent, Mr. President.
Distinguished colleagues, in line with our rules, will you permit him to go ahead and move his motion as applied? So, in that case, I'll put the question. Those in favor that he should go ahead and move the motion of urgent national importance, say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Please, distinguished Senator, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues.
Yes, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Binos Daudayaro, representing Adamawa South. I'm rising under Order 41, subsection 3. A senator moving a motion under combined orders 41 and 51 shall ensure that copies of the motion are available for all senators when approval to move the motion is granted. Thank you.
Distinguished Senator Dume.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, just maybe a kind of guidance. The motion moved by a distinguished colleague is very, very important. And as much as that is important, it is also important to really observe the point of order raised by Binos. Because this is a matter that is very important, and it is a matter that is the distinguished senator is supposed to carry us along. I agree with this anthrax, something that come out. I myself don't know much about it, and it is very important. But at the same time, as Binos observed, it is very important to respect the rule. So what I'm thinking is, or suggesting, is that since the motion is urgent, but it's not something that is an emergency, so to say, it would be better to circulate the motion to our colleagues so that we take it on the next legislative date, that is tomorrow or next tomorrow. Members will be aware and be willing to contribute positively. But for now, the debate on the motion, I don't think, I think will not be that. So that's my advice, but you are to rule on it.
Yeah, I believe strongly that yes, the motion is urgent, but I don't think 24 hours will be too much. So I distinguished Senator, I think it's important that we abide by our rules. So we would like to step it down to enable you make copies available, then we can take it tomorrow. So point of order is upheld. Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President of Senate, distinguished colleagues, the first order of the day is a motion standing in the name of Senator Nwokocha Darlington on the urgent need to intervene and investigate the continued dilapidation and delay in the completion of the Umuahia Umudike Ikotekpene, Aba Ikotekpene, Aba Osisioma to Port Harcourt route. Mr. President of Senate, you may wish to invite Senator Nwokocha Darlington to move the motion.
Senator Nwokocha Darlington, please move your motion.
Thank you, Mr. President and dear colleagues. My name is Darlington Nwokocha. I speak for the entire Nigeria, but Abia Central in particular. Mr. Senate President, I rise to move a motion on urgent need to investigate the delay in completion of Umuahia Umudike Ekotekpeni, Aba Ekotekpeni, and Osisioma to Port Harcourt highways. Mr. Senate President and their colleagues knows that the Aba Osisioma Port Harcourt Umuahia Umudike Ekotekpeni and Aba to Ekotekpeni roads are critical national assets and federal government category A interstate routes, traversing and connecting the southeast, south-south, southwest, and northern geopolitical zones of the country. Also note that the roads, which are central to the economic and social nerve of the cities of Aba, Umuahia, Uyo, Ekotekpeni, and Port Harcourt, serves as the arteries of Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited operations, providing the company an alternative channel for distribution of petroleum products, as well as important agricultural produce nationwide. This has continued to dilapidate due to uncountable delays in the completion of the projects. Further notes that the roads absorb heavy-duty vehicles and serves as the major alternative route for the movement of essential goods and passengers across the contiguous states of the southeast, south, western, and northern states of the country, with access to important national economic establishments like the export zones, cement factories, and large-scale manufacturing concerns. Aware that the federal government awarded the Umuahia Umudike Ekotekpeni, Aba Ekotekpeni, and Aba Osisioma Port Harcourt roads to Mesris CGCC Global Projects Nigeria Limited, Heartland and Recon Construction Company Limited, and China Civil Engineering Construction Company, CCECC, respectively, and funded by the NNPC Limited pursuant to the Presidential Executive Order 007, signed in 2019 under the Road Infrastructure Trust Credit Scheme, designed to boost Nigerian national roads assets and marginally reduce critical infrastructure deficit in the country. Recall that on Tuesday, December 22nd, 2021, the NNPC, that is Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, through its Chief Finance Officer, Mr. Omar Ajayi, publicly handed over a symbolic check of 621.24 billion for the reconstruction and rehabilitation of 21 critical roads across the country, including the Aba Ekotekpeni and Umuahia Umudike Ekotekpeni road to the federal government of Nigeria. The stop that despite spending in excess of 15 billion since inception on these critical roads, the Umuahia Umudike Ekotekpeni road had only attained 6% completion of as of April 2023, while the Aba Ekotekpeni and Aba Port Harcourt road continued deplorable states have led to economic stagnation of former boisterous commercial city of Aba, with more than 1,000 businesses closing down.
and associated negative impact on the standard of living of households, youth unemployment, government revenues, and general productivity, and if not expeditiously addressed, would worsen the devastating economic woes and threats of lives and property posed by the failed section of the roads. Also disturbed that the landlocked situation and deprivation of economic means created by the unending deplorable state of the roads have significantly contributed to the escalating insecurity activities in the southeast and the loss of several precious human lives on the affected sections of the road over time. Cognizant that the National Assembly has a constitutional mandate to conduct oversight over government policies, programs, and projects to ensure value for money, promotion of economic prosperity, protection of lives and property, and enhancement of sustainable national development of the country and every part thereof. Accordingly, resolved to 1. Urge the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing and the Federal Roads Maintenance Agency, FEMA, to urgently intervene and include the repair of failed portions of the roads, especially in Aba Osisioma to Port Harcourt Road, Omahe Kote Ekpeni, and Aba to Kote Ekpeni axis in the planned nationwide federal roads repair during this rainy season as palliative measure, while ensuring that a full and permanent solution is devised to urgently complete the project. 2. Mandate the Senate Committee on Works, when constituted, to investigate the award of the contract for the reconstruction and rehabilitation of Aba Osisioma to Port Harcourt, Umuahia Ikote Ekpeni, and Aba Ikote Ekpeni roads, level of funds released and utilization, and level of work completed, and factors contributing to unaccounted delays in the execution of the projects, and report to the Senate within 4 weeks for further legislative actions. I so move, Mr. Senate President.
Any seconder? Distinguished Senator, His Excellency Oji Uso Kalu.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand to second the motion ably moved by Senator Darlington Wokocha. Mr. President, in seconding this motion, I would like you to give me a few minutes to also talk about the Aba Osisioma Expressway. It's a very busy road, both for the north and the east and the west. This road, when I was governor, I put a toll gate, and the federal government later also put a toll gate on that road. It was taking an average of 1,700 trailers a day. And comparing to what it was taking then and now, I'm sure that the federal government should make haste in repairing that road, because going to Port Harcourt from Aba now takes almost 2.5 hours. This is supposed to be a journey of 20 minutes. So I urge my colleagues to support this motion and ask Mr. President to be able to show concern on this road, which concerns all Nigerians, not just Aba people. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Any Senator Ome?
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. This motion brought by the Minority Whip, Senator Darlington Okorocha, is a very wonderful motion. The two axes highlighted in this motion are very important axes in that region. The Umuahia Ikote Ekpeni Road, the Aba Ikote Ekpeni Road, and then Aba Osisioma Port Harcourt Road. These are roads I have plied in the past, particularly the Umuahia Ikote Ekpeni Road. It is a very important link road to Ikote Ekpeni and then Calabar, going through Umuahia Express, to the extent that if the road is good, vehicles will not be going up to Aba before they connect to Ikota Ekpene. So it's a diversion that will relieve the major highway, the dual carriageway of vehicles going to Calabar from reaching Aba before they veer off to the left. Then the one from Aba to Sisioma and Port Harcourt, Mr. President, that one is a nightmare. It's very unfortunate that the efforts of government are not properly synchronized. The two roads leading to Ikore Ekpene from Umuahia, Umudike, and Aba Ikore Ekpene, the government has tried to do something there, but at every time, they will not be serious on those roads. That's why going to Ikore Ekpene from Aba, which would have been taken a very short time, you spend hours on that road. I've used all those roads by myself. Then the one to Port Harcourt is very regrettable, Mr. President. From Enugu to Aba, you think today that you are applying roads like in America, in Europe, very beautiful roads built by Cetraco Nigeria Limited. The companies mentioned here now that are doing Aba Ikota Ekpene, Umuahia Umudike Ikota Ekpene, and Abosioma Port Harcourt Highway are, to me, very unknown companies. They are incompetent companies. That is why these roads have remained in the current state they are. From Aba to Port Harcourt, if they had allowed Cetraco to do it to Port Harcourt, within 15 minutes, from Aba to Port Harcourt, you arrive the city. But today, you can't reach Port Harcourt from Aba in 3 hours. Just because some companies that are not ready to do the work have been put on those roads. So, Mr. President, I think that this motion is very good, and I support it wholeheartedly, hoping that some action will be taken in reviewing the contracts there and possibly getting competent contractors and engineering companies to take over their constructions. So that when you take off from Enugu to Port Harcourt, you will be happy reaching Port Harcourt without any problem. But as soon as you are getting to Aba, when you are going to Port Harcourt, you now remember that you are trying to enter into the dungeon. That road from Aba to Port Harcourt, it's a very terrible thing. So let us support government efforts by putting proper contractors on the road so that they will deliver. 621 billion naira already handed out by the NNPC Company Limited. It's money that, if properly utilized with competent contractors, we will not be talking about this delay anymore. So I think the problem is in the contractors selected to do these jobs. I don't know which one is CCGL, and there's another one you mentioned. So let's dispense with all these contractors that are not competent and utilize the funds. Give it to contractors that are serious. From Umuahia to, Aba to Enugu, Enugu to Aba, is a long distance. Mr. President, if you go through, I'm sure you've gone through that road. There are excellent and beautiful roads done by Cetraco Nigeria Limited. Why should we disengage a contractor that is serious, capable, and competent, and then bring in companies that we don't know their capacity and put them on such roads, and the cost will go slow? I thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Ndume.
Thank you, Mr. President, and my distinguished colleagues. I rise to support this motion, but also to guide our colleagues on issues like this. The National Assembly, and by extension, the Senate, have a constitutional role of oversighting the agencies of government that is being appropriated. This motion is okay, as I said, but I would have preferred that the distinguished senator writes or invites the appropriate ministry to find out what is happening to this road, how much have been released to them, what is the problem. He has that right And if it is issue of money, maybe Ministry of Finance, then he also have the right to invite Minister of Finance about the releases to that ministry. Even if it is also the performance of the contractors on site, he has the right to even invite the contractor to explain why. So this process that we are going through now is the longest one, because after we adopt, we'll write the clerk will write SGF will write the minister. That is a long process. You have the right to, on the phone, invite the PAMSEC or talk with the chairman of the appropriate committee to invite the appropriate ministry to find out what is the status of the contract. That is so far. So for those others that have similar, because we have this contract of government spread everywhere, and you find out that so many funny things is happening, I'm urging our colleagues to use the appropriate committees or even personally ask the appropriate MDS to come before the person to explain. If there is any issue, then you can talk to the Senate President, who has the right to also bring the minister to the office and ask him directly what is happening with this project, what are the impediments, what does he think that will make it faster. I think that is better for all of us.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Alero.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. I remain Muhammad Adam Alero, representing KB Center. Mr. President, I want to give information to my colleagues regarding the construction of well over 800 roads in the country. Mr. President, on a yearly basis, what goes to the Ministry of Works is a paltry amount, very infinitesimal amount, very small amount compared to the total number of roads that are under construction. The total contract sum of these 800 roads all over the country is what is required is well over 10 trillion naira. But what is available in the budget is not more than 200 billion naira. And that is why the Ministry of Works decided to have what we can call complementary funding. We have SCOOP, we have the NMPC tax credit. And luckily this road is one of the roads that are enjoying NMCC tax credit, and also Port Harcourt Enugu Expressway enjoyed what we call SCOOP funding. So it is all over the country. This kind of situation is all over the country. It's not peculiar to these roads alone. You will find that even Kano Maiduguri suffered the same fate. Abuja, Lokoja suffered the same fate. Other roads in other geopolitical zones also have the same problem. So inadequate funding is the main cause of the delay. This NMPC tax credit is the only way out, because the money is available anytime the contractor submits his certificate, they will pay him. And it has just started now. I'm sure there will be a lot of progress within the next 2 to 3 months. Once the contractor submits his certificate, the money will be paid by FIRS, that is Federal Inland Revenue Service, under the NMPC tax credit. So I think this information is important for my colleagues to know. The all roads suffer the same fate in the country. Inadequate funding and budgetary provision is not enough. So complementary funding is required. And federal government has tried its best by bringing SCOOP and also the NMPC tax credit. Other schemes have also come in, like public-private partnership, particularly on major important roads that are viable. The Ministry of Works wanted to even give 27 roads to private sector to rehabilitate and also manage them for a period of time. But the process has not been completed yet. I'm sure under the present administration, that process will be completed and things will improve a lot. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Distinguished colleagues, just the explanation by His Excellency Distinguished Senator Alero, I think it applies to a lot of roads in the country. But I must say that this particular road traverses my own local government, the road to complain of. And I'm aware, the clerk, this explosion must be checked by your technical team. So the one that it does, that is the Aba Ikotekbene axis. It has been in that state for 43 years. It's a distance of about 20 minutes by car. But I can tell you that you can reach Aba in 2.5 hours. And it's been so, the people have passed through a lot. My people have suffered. In fact, it has killed the economy of Aba. Aba used to be bigger than Onitsha when it comes to the market. The productive capacity of Aba, all sorts of shoes made in Spain, but in Aba, were the order of the day in the 70s and 80s when we were growing up. Unfortunately, all that had gone because of the poor state of the road. I think the contributions are very clear, that, and I like some of the prayers here, that there's a lot of work to be done by the Committee on Works when constituted. So, and also the distinguished Senator Ndume said you could also find out, but I don't think that it will be the chairman of the Committee on Works or the committee itself or the Senate. Yes, so we go into the prayers, and later on, whether we are going to declare emergency on roads or we are going to take a holistic discussion or a retreat on road network in Nigeria, so that we can discuss holistically how to bring the situation to an end, or at best ameliorate the situation, being a corrective regime of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. And again, congratulations to the new chairman of appropriation, but he needs to know that part of the problem of the situation we have in the country is inadequate funding of road infrastructure. When you have a road of 150 billion and you put 200 million for grass clearing for this year, next year you put maybe 1 billion for gutter. By the time you come to the construction of the road, the gutter is gone. And then you don't intend to finish it in 25 years. We can't continue with that kind of funding. If we want to concentrate on a road, we concentrate on a road. It's better to finish 10, 20 projects than to put 200 projects and at the end of 4 years, you have achieved nothing. So let's go to the prayers. Prayer 1. Urge the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing and the Federal Roads Maintenance Agency, FEMA, to urgently intervene and include the repair of the failed portions of the roads, especially in the Aba Osisioma to Port Harcourt, Umuahia, Ikeregbene, and Aba to Ikeregbene axis in the planned nationwide federal roads repair during this rainy season as palliative measure, while ensuring that a full and permanent solution is devised to urgently complete the project. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Amendment or additional prayer, because we've concluded that one. I'm sure you have additional prayer, right? Let's finish with prayer 2. Prayer 2 mandates the Senate Committee on Works, when constituted, to investigate the award of the contracts for the reconstruction, rehabilitation of the Aba Osisioma to Port Harcourt, Umuahia, Ikeregbene, and Aba Ikeregbene routes. Level of funds released and utilization, the level of work completed, and factors contributing to the unaccounted delays in the execution of the projects and to report to the Senate within 4 weeks for further legislative action. Of course, this is when the committee is constituted, the Committee on Works. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Any additional prayer? Yes, Senator Karimi.
Thank you, Mr. President. My colleagues, my name is Karimi Sunday. I represent Kogi West. That the Senate should declare a state of emergency on the issue of construction and rehabilitation of Nigerian roads by undertaking a retreat and public hearing that will address the issue of financing, and other issues related to the issue of completion of ongoing construction of road networks all over the country. It's another motion. It's another prayer. Or you want me to come out with a motion on it because I have it?
Since it's another motion, I believe you will come in writing. Any seconder to the other motion? No seconder. Senator Saligu Abubakar Ohere, Senator Ohere, any additional prayer?
Thank you, Mr. President. The additional prayer I wanted to add, Mr. President, is that from the comprehensive analysis, I'm a senator representing Kogi Central. From the comprehensive information given by our most respected Senator Aleru, it appears that there is a gap between the execution and fund release. I would have suggested that the Ministry of Prayer, that my prayer is that the Ministry of Finance should be mandated to also provide comprehensive information either quarterly on fund release to national road network projects across the country.
Yes. Any seconder? Yes. No, I don't want the brother to second. I want the civil Senator Zam. Am I right? Yes.
Mr. President, my name is Dr. Taichu Zam. I represent the dynamic people of Benue Northwest Senatorial District. I rise to second the prayers as suggested by Senator Ohere with a little modification. I so second. Thank you very much.
Those who are in support of the additional prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Let me thank
Distinguished colleagues, again, Senator Alin Dume, representing Borno South. The additional prayers, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues, because of the second prayer, which says that we refer the committee to investigate. I feel that right now we have Ministry of Works. Second prayer. It's a prayer. I understand. No, I'm explaining. Before I put the prayer, the additional prayer, the additional prayer, sir, is to invite the Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Works, who is in charge of the works, to brief the Senate leadership on the status of this road before we take any action. I so move.
Any seconder? Yes, Senator Idiot.
Senate President, distinguished colleagues, I stand to support the motion moved by Senator Ali Dume.
Distinguished colleagues, those who are in support of the additional prayer that the Permanent Secretary of Ministry of Works should be invited to brief distinguished senators on the status of this road project. Say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So let me thank distinguished Senator Darlington Okuche for this wonderful initiative and the motion bringing this for the floor of the Senate, and I assure you that it won't be just a mere motion and business as usual. When the Permanent Secretary eventually arrives, we would like to know more on why the situation has been the way it is, because I know the people are suffering a lot on this Osisioma area of the road. And of course, the axis I mentioned in the Ikeregbere axis for 40-something years, nobody had passed through. And this has affected the entirety of the productive capacity of Aba as an area that was, Aba used to have a lot of industries and shoemaking and other things and all that. So if this project is done, it will really help to bring about employment opportunities while creating access for commuters all over the country. So I thank you for this motion. And the Senate Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. The second order of the day is a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Chinwuba Ndubeze Patrick on the need to investigate the controversial huge expenditure on premium motor spirit under the subsidy under recovery regime by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Chinwuba Ndubeze Patrick to move the motion.
Distinguished Senator Ndubeze.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, thank you for giving me this opportunity. First of all, please take correction. Chinwuba is not the surname. Ndubeze is the surname. 2, they said Imo East. It should be Imo North. Thank you. I can go ahead with the motion.
So we didn't get you. I said distinguished Senator Ndubeze. Was I right? Okay. Okay, please put it in writing to the clerk. Continue with your motion.
My mic. The Senate notes that the federal government, in its fight against corruption, in order to plug the presumed highly proliferated leakages, wastages, slippages surrounding the fuel subsidy, as well as in an attempt to end controversial subsidy regime, on May 11, 2016, announced increase in fuel subsidy price from 87 naira to between 135 and 145 naira per liter. Aware that at the inauguration of the present government on May 29, 2023, the president took a bold step to announce a total removal of the fuel subsidy, noting that the scheme has increasingly favored the rich more than the poor. Recognizes that the federal government's interest in exiting the subsidy regime was in line with its policy to reduce costs of governance and desire to eliminate corrupt practices surrounding the scheme through diversion and smuggling of the products into border countries, as well as introduce fair competition in the downstream sector. Informed that an NPCL within the period of subsidy a subsidy exit attempt, substituted the term subsidy with under recovery without any recourse to the National Assembly or supervision by any other arm of the government. The Senate observed that while NNPCL within 10 years, 2006 and 2015, claimed that about 170 billion as under recovery. The same NNPCL within 13 months, January 2018 to January 2019, claimed a whopping sum of 843.121 billion naira as under recovery. Concerned that the then Petroleum Product Pricing Regulatory Agency, PPPRA, published in its website figures that contradicted NNPCL's daily under recovery claims within the same period. Also concerned that the federal government appropriated 1.42 trillion and 4.3 trillion naira for petrol subsidy in 2021 and 2022 respectively, while 3.6 trillion was appropriated for petrol subsidy for 6 months ending June 2023. Worried that NNPCL's arbitrary and unsupervised direct deductions from the country's crude oil revenue without recourse to any enabling law contravenes Section 89, 1C and 1D of the 1999 Constitution as amended, and does not speak well of the good intentions of the federal government, especially in the fight against corruption. And also worried that the uninvestigated and alarming cost of under-recovery / direct deductions of an NPCL without necessary checks has led to great misunderstanding of government's good intentions on subsidy removal. The Senate accordingly resolved to constitute an ad hoc committee to holistically investigate all controversies surrounding subsidy and the under-recovery regime. 2, investigate the group chief executive officer GCEO of NNPCL to brief the Senate on its under-recovery expenditures and the company's position on subsidy removal of the present administration. Mandate the Committee on Downstream Petroleum Sector, when constituted, to constantly monitor, scrutinize, approve midstream and downstream spending of NNPCL. And the fourth but not the least, urge the NNPCL, in conjunction with some major international oil companies, IOCs, in Nigeria to form 3 different consortium and build 3 refineries, 1 each of the consortium to stabilize our oil market, give value to our currency, and stabilize our economy. I so move.
Thank you very much, Senator Patrick Ndebuzi. Any seconder? Senator Jibrin Issa Ochocho.
Your Excellency, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am Issa Jibrin, representing the very good people of Kogi East. I rise to second this motion, ably moved by distinguished Senator Ndubueze. I rise to second the motion as moved by Senator Ndubueze, and with the permission of the SP, go ahead to pass my comments. Should I?
You can go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I want to commend once again the mover of this motion. It is very timely, and it is a motion that is of concern to every Nigerian as it is now. First, the issue of subsidy, okay, is so annoying because we have all along been subsidizing the neighboring countries. Not only subsidizing Nigeria, we've been subsidizing the neighboring countries. Most of the, a significant percentage of the fuel subsidized in Nigeria finds its ways to neighboring countries such as Cameroon, Niger, and other neighboring countries. So it is really painful that we have all along subsidized neighboring countries, when in essence, we cannot adequately take care of ourselves. Having said that, Mr. Chairman, Mr. President, sir, more worrisome is the fact that a significant percentage of the fund being used for this subsidy is borrowed, all along was borrowed. You don't borrow money, you don't borrow fund to subsidize. You borrow money for productive purposes, especially revenue generating projects, okay? And that has contributed partially to where we are today, where Nigeria is in a state of...
Chief Whip, can you keep the chamber silent, please? Chief Whip. Chief Whip.
Thank you, Mr. President. Okay? Because of the large sums of money being borrowed to fund subsidy, Nigeria has itself today been subjected to what we call debt peonage system. Debt peonage system is a state of perpetual indebtedness. That is where we have been all along, and we need to wriggle ourselves out of that. Okay? I want to commend the president of the country for the bold step he has taken to remove the subsidy. But more importantly, I also want to commend him from the discontinuance of fuel subsidy must be used to revive some of the ailing companies in Nigeria, in particular, Ajakuta Steel Complex, Itakwe Iron Ore in Kogi State, Oshobo Iron Steel Rolling Mill, Kasina Steel Rolling Mill, Aba Textiles, okay, Kasina Steel Mill, Aba Textiles, and some other textile companies in the north, Ariwa Textiles, for example. Those monies should be used appropriately to fund those projects, revive those projects. Those projects will create a lot of employment opportunities. They will create a lot of revenue for the government. They will also have potentials for foreign exchange earnings. So I want to wholeheartedly support this motion and the prayers arising therefrom. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Isunaso.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Osita Izunaso. I represent the people of Imo West. Mr. President, I must commend the mover of this motion, Senator Patrick Ndubeze. This motion is not only timely, but this motion has come at a time that this Senate must take a bold step in looking at the plight of ordinary Nigerians who are suffering very heavily as a result of petroleum subsidy removal. Mr. President, much as I want to thank the President and Commander-in-Chief for removing fuel subsidy, it is also important that when the subsidy is removed, we have to look at the palliatives to cushion the effect of subsidy removal. Mr. President, much as we're going to make a lot of gain from subsidy removal, we also have to look at the sufferings of our people today. Commuters are the final end users of petrol, and they are suffering most. If you want to commute from one small place to another small place now, you have to pay heavily for that. But, Mr. President, I must take our mind back to some of the problems that gave rise to what we are suffering today, is what is known as turnaround maintenance. A situation where NNPC and Ministry of Petroleum started the issue of turnaround maintenance and started giving contracts to companies that did not build the refineries to come and maintain the refineries. I don't know how that vocabulary of turnaround maintenance started, because that is where our problem started. A company will build a refinery, you will leave that company that built the refinery, you will appoint another company to come and maintain the refinery. I don't know where that is done all over the world. So that is where this problem
started and all our refineries were shut down. Today, we can't boast of any refinery that is producing. Mr. President, my knowledge of crude is that even in villages, in some states where they do bunkering, Mr. President, they even refine this crude along the road. So that means that to refine the product is not a very difficult thing. Why is it that we don't even have a law mandating IOCs, all the oil companies in Nigeria, to at least refine 30% of what they produce? How can you produce crude in Nigeria? You will export the same crude to another country, they will refine the same crude you produce in Nigeria, then you go and buy it at a very exorbitant rate. This is the essence of this refinery. So I believe that the cartel that are involved in this refinery should be brought to book, because it's a very serious matter. Now, the NNPC or the Minister of Petroleum over the years have been budgeting astronomical figures for fuel subsidy. This is what is causing the problem. Even the budget of 2023, beginning from January 1 to June 30, is 3-point-something trillion. So assuming that that is allowed, it means that we are going to have about 7 trillion for this year on fuel subsidy. Mr. President, I think that that issue has to be looked into. In conclusion, Mr. President, I believe that there is need to look at the entire oil subsidy thing, because I don't think it is going well for the people of this country. The cartels must be brought to book. The NNPC themselves that are doing this issue of under-recovery, we also have to look at it. That is why I'm saying that this motion have come at a very auspicious time, and we must utilize the opportunity of this motion to dig deep into the problems of oil subsidy in Nigeria. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Sani Musa.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Mohammed Sani Musa, representing Niger East. I think this motion came at the right time, and we must commend the present administration for taking the bull by the horn in removing the subsidy. The subsidy regime, as it is today, it has proven that funds are only being siphoned. Because as at the moment, NNPC said the consumption of fuel have reduced from 67 million liters per day to about 48 million. What it means is that the difference we are seeing today, which is not even enough, I know that it's going to come down. And I knew that we have not reduced the vehicular movements we have in this country, because it is the only source at the moment which we move. So who was taking almost 18.5 million liters every day? So I think this motion came at the right time, and I believe that if we looked at it in-depthly, we will be able to do more savings for this country. And the problem with this is that most of the people that are committing such atrocities in this country still move very freely. And you give them the opportunity, when you close one, they try to open another way of making it. So I believe this is the right time for this. As a corrective Senate, we must look at this and bring those people to book. You cannot be taking 18.5 million liters of fuel, and today we can see that that's why the cost of petrol that have gone up, the movement have not reduced. So there is something that we need to look at in the Senate, and this motion, I think, is another part to getting to a solution to these issues. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. Distinguished Senator Mongoro.
Mr. President, distinguished senators, my name is Mohammed Tahir Monguno. I represent Borno North Senatorial District. As rightly alluded to by the previous speakers, this motion is apt and germane, especially against the background of the controversy that the issue of fuel subsidy has generated in this country. Before I make my submissions, Mr. President, distinguished senators, I wish to state that I adopt all the submissions made by the previous speakers as mine, and want to further add that the issue of fuel subsidy has been not only the elephant in the room, but the big elephant in the room that has constituted a cock in the wheel of our developmental aspirations and bringing dividends of democracy to the doorsteps of our constituents, especially against the backdrop of the huge amount of resources that we deploy in the name of subsidizing fuel. And as rightly alluded to by the previous speakers, as a result of the high cost of fuel in neighboring countries of Cameroon, Chad, Niger Republic, and my constituency happens to be neighboring Chad Republic, we are aware that a lot of smuggling activities goes on. These neighboring countries virtually depend on the fuel produced in Nigeria. So all along, we are subsidizing neighboring countries to the detriment of Nigerian citizens, our constituents. And distinguished senators, I can vividly recall that in the 7th Assembly, this issue of fuel subsidy has been investigated thoroughly by the 7th Assembly, and report has been submitted to the relevant authorities. And in the course of the investigation, a lot of things that are not supposed to be were unveiled. And government should have, right from the word go, at that period in time, have withdrawn the issue of subsidy because of what the investigation has unveiled. But subsequent governments do not have the political will to withdraw the subsidy. And we thank this government for taking the bull by the horn and gathering all the political will and clout to withdraw the subsidy in the interest of Nigerians. And now we are saving a lot of money, which we can use to deploy for the purpose of bridging our infrastructure needs. And in conclusion, my humble advice is that in view of the hardship unleashed on Nigerians as a result of the withdrawal of fuel subsidy, there is need for the government being responsible and responsive to the yearnings and sufferings of Nigerians to come up with ways and means of giving succor and cushioning the effect of the fuel subsidy withdrawal on Nigerians. Once again, thank you very much, Mr. Senate President, for this opportunity to contribute on this very important motion. Thank you.
Distinguished Senator Wasiu.
Thank you, the President, sir. I will join my colleague in aligning my thoughts and support with my distinguished brother for raising this all-important motion. I want to say that, as we all know, subsidy is not as if subsidy is bad, but however, subsidy can be green, it can be yellow, and it can be red. When it's green, it is permissible. When it is red, it's no more permissible, and that is the stage we are in, where corruption are taking over. No government will want his people to suffer unduly, but when the intention of government is being exploited to the detriment of the populace, there is need for government to take action
And that's exactly what the government has done. But having done that, you expect the benefit accruable to this government policy to be used for the benefit of Nigerians. And that is why we need to investigate, as enunciated and itemized by my distinguished brother. And the Constitution, we are still acting in line with the Constitution. I said that wherever the Senate or the legislative arm, we have the legislative competence to act when we suspect fraud in any governmental action or policy. And exactly that is what our brother has alluded to. Need for the Senate to understand, call, ask questions, and take corrective measure and necessarily supervision that will benefit the populace of this great country. So, in essence, I'm supportive of this great motion. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator Wadada.
Thank you very much, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. The importance of this motion cannot be overemphasized, and I wouldn't want to dwell on the aspect of the advantages that have got to do with removal of subsidy, but rather I will want to talk more on what will accrue to the nation if the savings that will be gotten as a result of removal of subsidy are injected to the right sector. First and foremost, the President of Nigeria today, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has always been on the side of welfare for the citizens of Nigeria. I mean, he has always, over the years, propagated welfare for the citizens of Nigeria. So if these savings are utilized judiciously, it will ensure welfare for the citizens of the country. And if injected into the various sectors or sectors of our real sector, that will provide, will rejuvenate the real sector. And rejuvenation of the real sector will provide mass employment for the citizens of this country. And of course, again, rejuvenation of the real sector will make Nigeria an exporter nation rather than an importer nation. And the more we export, the more foreign exchange we get for the country. And of course, our foreign reserves will as well be beefed up. So those are the areas that I feel I should put a little more emphasis on as to the gains of the removal of subsidy if the savings that will accrue as a result of the removal are utilized judiciously. I so contribute, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Darlington.
Thank you, the Senate President and their colleagues. My name remains Darlington Nwokocha. I speak for Abia Central. Mr. Senate President, I want to come from another flank based on what Senator Mongonu said. I know quite well that things that has to do with this subsidy has been investigated by several other houses prior to this time. But one question remains: what level of compliance was given to the resolutions of all those investigations? Mr. Senate President, I know we have all it takes, like I said the other day, to push and pull every string that will make the nation move better and forward by way of oversight. And I know quite well that this issue is causing a whole lot of problem today in Nigeria, subsidy, because it was not abetted at the right time. Mr. Senate President, I want to say that I've seen the prayers here that we should set up ad hoc committee, which will still look into this, because in entire Nigeria today, everybody is feeling the beat of this prolonged oil subsidy, which we know that's a total scam on our economy. Mr. Senate President, my contribution this morning is that whenever we set this ad hoc committee, if we resolve so, that we must work hard, that their prayers must completely and totally be. And if we are not ready to do that, it's better we don't set up any ad hoc committee. But if we must do that, we must make sure that the executive strictly, because I can see that the president, having pushed with a great will to remove the subsidy, which had not been done over the other regimes, he has done his own best. Our own bit is to make sure, as the legislature that have all the powers to investigate and at the same time oversight the executive and all the webs that has to do with this oil subsidy, no matter whose us is God, we must effectively make sure that every prayer that we resolve must be complied with and adhered strictly. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Shehu Buba Umar.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Shehu Buba Umar, representing good people of Bauchi South. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I want to add my own voice on these very, very important motions. First of all, I want to commend the mover of these motions because the motion is very apt at the moment. Mr. President, I also want to allude myself with the contributions of Senator Munguno and distinguished Senator Osita. Because of this fuel subsidy removal, Mr. President, you can see that the increase in transport fares has skyrocketed, leaving the motorists and the travelers at the mercy of God. Therefore, I also want to commend His Excellency, President Bola Tinubu, for jinx-breaking decision of the fuel subsidy removal against all odds. And in doing that, the federal government is urged to make available the palliatives that will bring succor to Nigerians. These palliatives should include the provision of buses for interstate commercial transportations by all Nigerians at a half-price current market reality. Also, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I suggest, because of the increase on the transport fare, shuttle buses to all recognized campuses from institutions of higher learning and hospitals across that will reduce the impact of students, workers, as well as those desirous of visiting, going to the hospitals or medical centers. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Karimi.
Thank you, Mr. President. My colleagues, my name is Karimi Sunday. I represent Kogi West. Mr. President, this motion is a welcome development for our country. Facts and figure. From the report of NNPC last month, NNPC said they made a saving of over 400 billion within 1 month of subsidy removal. It is either that 400 billion was stolen from Nigeria directly, or it was taken to neighbor, fuel what that amount was taken to neighboring country to dash them Nigerian money freely. So what President Tinubu did by removal of fuel subsidy is to say, no, this wastage cannot continue. Saving 400 billion just for 1 month. There is need for Nigeria to know who has been taking this huge amount from Nigeria monthly. Those people must be brought to justice. We cannot just say that we have removed fuel subsidy, we have closed the books. No, there is need to investigate. A lot of people has benefited in this corruption. And if possible, we have to get Nigerian money back from those people. That is why I think this motion is apt, and I think we have to work on all the prayers of this motion. Thank you.
So the two senators from the Senator Solomon Adiola Olamileko. Were you raising your hand?
Mr. President, thank you very much. Yes, I was raising my hand just to make one or two observations about this motion, but I want us to get to the prayers where one of the prayer is setting up another.
Okay, so if your problem is with the prayers, let's go to the prayers. Please, let's take the prayers. Prayer 1. Yes, Senator Ningi.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Ningi, and I represent Bauchi Central of Bauchi State. Mr. President, Order 54, Sub 2 and 3. By your leave, may I read? During the debate on all motions, the President of the Senate shall allow a senator to speak for or against the motion. But during second reading of a bill, a senator can speak on the general principle of the bill or measures pointing out the merit of the bill, including statutory and constitutional issues. And number 3 goes on to say, the President of the Senate shall allocate 1/2 of such time to be given to debate in favor or against. The intendment of this point of order, Mr. President, from inception, sir, probably we have failed to observe. When a motion is before the Senate President called for arguments for, and after that is done, then argument against, then the question is put. I so submit, Mr. President.
Yeah, really, that's what we've been doing. I've not seen if any senator is recognized to speak and the senator is against the bill, or against the motion, the senator should say so. My job is to note those who are speaking, and in the course of the speeches, I will know those who are for and those who are against. But eventually, when we are through and we put the question, then the majority will carry the day. So I've noted your point of order, and I won't rule you out of order. I will only say noted. So the the prayers. Constitute an ad hoc committee to holistically investigate all controversies surrounding subsidy and under recovery regime. Those who are, okay, yes, Senator Olamiriko, yes.
Mr. President, I don't know, maybe you put the voice votes first or come up with another prayer entirely, because what I'm saying is that a similar motion like this was raised by Senator Karimi last week, and we all agreed that instead of setting up the ad hoc committee, we should wait until when the standing committee will be in place. And this motion before us has to do with petroleum products, has to do with investigating the NNPC. I also strongly believe that that same position we took during the Senator Karimi's motion should be applied to this as well. By allowing this motion to be, we have debated it, but allow the standing committee of the Senate to be in place so that they can look into this. Because if you look at the quantum of money involved in this, I believe we need a very detailed investigation as to what has transpired during the subsidy regime and going forward. So I would be suggesting that we have a standing committee in place before we commit this motion. That is.
So in other words, your suggestion is that the standing committees, when emplaced, it should be allowed to do this. So those who are in support of the first prayer, is there any seconder at all? Is anybody seconding the? Yours is actually supposed to be an motion. It's a major amendment to the first prayer. Yes. So is anybody seconding it? Senator Ningi, so that you throw more light on it.
Yeah, Mr. President, my name is Senator Ningi, and I rise to second the motion, heavily canvassed by Senator Adiola. I think it is important to recognize what happened last week and also what is happening this week. It is about the same subject matter, and we stood down because of the preponderance of creating ad hoc committees that may eventually dilute the investigation. When we have committees in place, like these committees has to do with petroleum and finance, they will be able, and of course appropriation, they'll be able to look at these things and come up with decisions that will be far-reaching rather than creating an ad hoc committee. I so second, sir.
So those who are in support of the motion are seconded that this beautiful motion should be referred to standing committees when in place. Say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So the motion is stepped down, and until standing committees are put in place. But do we need to? Distinguished Senator Tamboa.
Mr. President, I am Amin Waziri Tambuwal, representing Sokoto South. I wish to draw the attention of Mr. President to the fact that having had this motion and question been put by the Mr. President and carried and adopted by the Senate, at best, Mr. President, we can only refer it to those committees without stepping it down.
Yes, I agree with you. We will refer it to the committees. So having heard the motions and having had the seconder, those who are in support that this the motions as debated be referred to the standing committees when in place, say aye. Those against say nay. So the ayes have it. But we can go ahead with even the second prayer. Invite the group chief executive officer. It's the same thing. So we don't need to. Third, mandate the committee, the same thing. And then fourth, urge the same thing. So let me thank distinguished Senator Ndubueze. Am I right? Yeah, distinguished Senator Patrick Ndubueze for this motion, which has elicited a lot of things that are concerns to not just the Nigerian Senate, but to the generality of the Nigerian public, and hope that now that we have referred all the prayers hearing to all the committees from downstream, upstream, finance, and all that, that once the committees are in place, we'll have a joint committee looking into all the prayers and doing a holistic appraisal of what went on in this subsidy regime. I also note that the Senate has, in the course of the debate, commended Mr. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, for the decision to even remove this subsidy. So I think that must also be noted for the gentlemen of the press, that we are very excited for the courage, and we look forward to the palliatives that will come to ameliorate the sufferings that the decision could have engendered on Nigerians. But I think it was one decision that had to be taken, and it is good that it is taken in our time during the 10th Senate. Thank you, gentlemen, for your contributions. Leader of the Senate. Point of order.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Mohammed Ogoshi Onao. I represent Nasarawa South. I come under Order 42, personal explanation. By the leave of Mr. President, I might want to read the order.
Please read.
Thank you, sir. By the indulgence of the Senate and the leave of the President of the Senate, a senator may make a personal explanation, although there may be no question before the Senate, but no controversial matter may be brought forward, nor may debate arise upon the explanation. The terms of the proposed statement shall be submitted in detail to the President of the Senate when this leave to make it is sought. Sir, I want to make an...
Yes, you just finished reading, and it's self-explanatory that you need to seek the leave of the Senate, and then, of course, you need to also discuss it with the Senate President, and you've not yet discussed. So before we even think of seeking the leave of the Senate. So point of order is hereby overruled. Yes, Leader of the Senate.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, the third order of the day is a motion standing in the name of distinguished Senator Lawal Adamu Usman on the urgent need to expeditiously complete the ongoing 160-kilometer Abuja-Kaduna Expressway construction and to increase the presence of security surveillance through the deployment of more personnel and use of unmanned aerial vehicles such as drones, radar, and scanners on and around the highway. Mr. President, you may wish to invite distinguished Senator Lawal Adamu Usman to move the motion. Thank you.
Yes. Distinguished Senator Usman Lawal Adamu.
Good afternoon, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. My name is Senator Lawal Adamu Usman, representing Kaduna Central. I rise today to move the motion on the Abuja-Kaduna Federal Highway. I read the Senate. Note that the Abuja-Kaduna, parts of the Abuja-Kaduna-Kano Express need urgent attention. Also note that it is one of the most important trunk A road that lead into the northwest part of the north central and the northeast geographical region of the country. The road is not only a link into but connects Nigeria from the north to the south, and it's an extremely important business road for supply of goods and services from the south to the north and vice versa. Worried that as a result of the state of the road, travelers experience the trauma of driving through bandit-infested areas, and it also causes damage to their vehicle as a result of accident or hitting deep potholes, etc., not to mention the goods they carry. Recall that previous administration had contracted the service of Julius Berger PLC construct the road, and during the first time of the immediate past administration, the sum of 275 billion was released to the company for the reconstruction, and contracted that the delay in the completion of the road is worrisome to the road users, which has hindered social, economic activities between the South and the FCT and various parts of the country. Accordingly, Resolve 4 mandate the Senate Committee on Road, when constituted, engage the Federal Ministry of Works, Federal Ministry of Finance, and FEMA to investigate all funds released for this important project from the award date to the present, with the aim of finding out the reason for the delay in completing the project. Call on the contractor to quickly mobilize to site to ensure completion in the shortest time frame. Also call on the security agencies to deploy personnel and equipment on the highway in order to curb the menace of criminality along the expressway and its environment, and mandate the Senate Committee on Relative Compliance when constituted to ensure compliance. I so move, Mr. President.
Any seconder? Yes, distinguished Senator Alero.
Thank you, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues. Mohammed Adamu Alero, representing Kebbi Central. I rise to second the motion ably moved by distinguished Senator Lawal for urgent need to expeditiously complete the ongoing 166-kilometer Abuja-Kaduna Expressway construction and the increasing presence of the security surveillance through deployment of more personnel and use of unmanned aerial vehicles such as drones, radars, and scanners on and around the highway. Mr. President, in seconding this motion, I also want to make some comments regarding the construction of this very important road. This road was initially awarded for limited rehabilitation at the cost of 155 billion naira. Later, the government decided to go for complete reconstruction of the road from Abuja to Kano, and it's in 3 segments. That is Abuja to Kaduna, then Kaduna, Zaria, the second segment. The third segment is Zaria, Kano. Mr. President.
But just an explanation so that we can understand. You said that the road was initially awarded for rehabilitation at the cost of 155 billion. Before, so as you are going for reconstruction now, at what cost?
The total reconstruction of the road was awarded at the cost of 850 billion naira. That is from Abuja to Kaduna to Zaria and then to Kano. And so far, the construction of the road between Kaduna and Zaria has virtually been completed, and also from Zaria to Kano is also completed. But where we have problem is from Abuja to Kaduna. At a particular stage, the contractor, that is Julius Berger, had to abandon the site because of insecurity. Bandits were kidnapping the construction workers, and travelers are also being kidnapped severally. So they decided to stop the ongoing reconstruction of the road. The security agents had to provide security for over 24 hours. At times, even helicopters were used to survey the area and relay information to the security agents on the road. However, it's only of recent that we witness some progress, because the contractor was able to remobilize, and over 5 to 6 gangs were redeployed in order to ensure that they complete the construction of the road. But still, we have problems because it is really in bad shape, and it's only the presence of security personnel on 24 hours will make speedy construction possible. Otherwise, we will continue to have that problem. So I associate myself with the views expressed in this motion, and I support the prayers conversed by the mover of the motion. And I commend him for doing that, because it's a very important road link for both the northwest, north central, and also the northeast. And equally, it provides link to the Federal Capital Territory and also to other geopolitical zones in the southern part of the country. So I so second, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Abamoro.
Thank you, Mr. President, for giving me this opportunity. My name is Abamoro, a senator representing the very good people of the Benue South Senatorial District. Mr. President, I want to seize this opportunity to commend the mover of this motion, because it's not only timely but very expeditious. Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, you will recall that the Kaduna-Abuja Road has been a theater of kidnappings, abductions, and all manner of crimes. And this situation was ameliorated by the introduction of the rail line, which unfortunately has also witnessed some level of damages arising from the attacks by hoodlums and kidnappers. And so today, as it is, the only safe road or route to Kaduna from Abuja is actually the Abuja-Kaduna Road. And so, noting also that these attacks and kidnappings occur where roads are spoiled, where there are potholes, and necessitates drivers and commuters to slow down, it becomes imperative, therefore, that this road be reconstructed expeditiously so that these theaters of art can be removed by our military that have been doing wonderfully well in protecting the route. And so, Mr. President, I lend my support for this motion and urge my colleagues to support it in the same way. Thank you, Mr. President.
Distinguished Senator Jimmy Kuta.
Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, I am David S.U. Jimkuta, representing the good people of Taraba South. Mr. President, I want to commit the mover of this motion, Lawan, Senator Lawan. Mr. President, you see, this Kaduna-Abuja Expressway needs serious attention. Why is it? Because some of the bad spots where the checking point are, I want to believe that's where the kidnappers hang around to give information on the movement of motorists in that axis. And secondly, I think every day since the inception of this Senate, 10th Senate, there's issue of one road or the other in this country. And there is no area in this country that I feel, or zone, geopolitical zone, that have not experienced this bad road. So I want to say this, Mr. President, like any other zone, even the Northeast, so far the same thing, abundance of road. So what I want to suggest is, please, if the committee is properly set up, like what my senior brother, my father said, the former, I meant to understand, is the chairman of works in the 9th Senate. He have shared more light on this. Please, they should do the needful, because it affects every zone, geopolitical zone in this country. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Senator Abdul Ningi, and I represent Bauchi Central, Bauchi State. Mr. President, let me join others in commending Senator Usman. But let me say, Mr. President, this is one of the roads that touches the heart of this country. And in fact, this is the road that connects the entire North Central and the Northwest in this part of the country, and Northeast. This is really central to the development of Nigerians, particularly Northern Nigeria. Outside the National Assembly, while we were outside before we came back, this road has been one of the roads that a lot of complaints was laid to the inefficacy of the National Assembly to give the much needed energy on this road. I have heard Senator Alero talking about the issue of insecurity. But Mr. President, this is a road that is 11 years in the making, and it is just about 166 kilometers. And I've also heard the former chairman talking about 800 billion. The last investigation on this road amounts to almost 1 trillion naira. And every time the contractor demands more money because of one thing or the other. The issue of insecurity is nationwide. And therefore, when contractors fail to perform, where also from our investigations, monies were collected. Even the 155 billion limited rehabilitation that the regime of Goodluck Jonathan gave. No. Limited rehabilitation. This road, I have the information, this road was first given limited rehabilitation by Jonathan administration, re-awarded to full construction by Buhari. Now, even the limited rehabilitation, Mr. Senate President, of 155 billion, you go to the road and find out. You drive yourself, sir, and see how much effort, how much work was put on the road. The former chairman also made mention that the Zaria Kano is completed, is almost completed. It's not yet completed because I just flight the road 2 days ago. So it is important that we state this fact clearly. This road becomes a problem to the regime of Buhari because there is no simple explanation given. Where you have the checkpoints, the most terrible areas in the road is between Jere and Kaduna. is almost about 50 kilometers within. That's why the domination of the insecurity that persisted in the last couple of years. And this insecurity does not just become an issue, but in the last 3-4 years ago. So what happens in the first 5 years ago? So my take on this matter, sir, is that these contractors that are on the road have not paid sufficient attention. They have not shown serious prioritization of this road. Mr. President, if you are going to Kaduna, a journey of almost 166 kilometers, you need to be ready to spend 4 hours. And you also need to be ready when you come back to buy tires. You also need to be ready when you fly the road 2 times to change your shock absorber. It is unbelievable that a road of this magnitude is looking like in the jungle. It's looking like a jungle road. And this is the premier road in northern Nigeria. And therefore, believe you me, this road should occupy the attention of the legislatures. It is important, just like many other roads, but this particular road has become a sore point in the administration of the former President General Buhari.
Thank you. Distinguished senators, please let us kindly make very brief submissions. Distinguished Senator Sani Bello.
Thank you, Mr. President. My name is Abu Sani Bello, representing Niger North. Let me seize this opportunity to commend the mover of this motion. I think, Mr. President, we have already been told by previous speakers the importance of this route. But if I may just add that, as additional prayer, that the Federal Ministry of Works should direct the contractor to use part of the provision under contingency to stabilize the failed sections and diversions on the road to allow for free flow of traffic. Because at the moment, it is very, very difficult to ply that road. Sometimes you have traffic jams that will last 5-6 hours. So there is always a provision for contingency in every contract, and it's a lot of money. So I think the contractor should use part of it to stabilize the failed section. So as part of additional prayer, I think we should include this, Mr. President.
Thank you. The Deputy Senate President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Barrow Jibrin Kano North. Mr. President, permit me to commend Senator Lawan for bringing up this motion, because this road is vital, is critical to the entire northern states of this country. Is in fact the most important road. And the fact that this road is not completed is a big gap in the economic setup in the entire northern Nigeria. It's very dear to the economy of the whole north. Therefore, it has become so important that we need to voice, we need to talk, we need to ask that this road should be completed. Mr. President, some months back, anybody that wanted to commit suicide, just for him to just ply that road, because you'll be killed. You'll be killed. The fact that the road is bad has made criminals to lay ambush everywhere, kill, maim people with reckless abandon. Thank God that those who are saddled with the responsibility to provide security on that road are now doing a wonderful job. We are no longer hearing about kidnappings and so on and so forth. We need to commend them. Any person that does his job properly needs to be commended. They are doing very well now. But what remains is to ginger the government. And I know our current president, Aswaju Ahmed Bola Tinubu, will do something about it, because he's somebody who believes in projecting our economy in a manner that everybody is happy about his administration. I know you do something about it. The only thing we do in this situation, because a motion has been brought, is to add our voice to the call that this road should be completed. Because it's a big gap. It's a big gap to the entire economic setup of the northern region. I therefore call on my colleagues to support this motion in its entirety so that this road will be completed as soon as possible. Thank you, Mr. President.
I think on the road.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, Mohammed Ademaleru is my name. Mr. President, the additional information I wanted to give is that this road is among the 3 legacy projects of President Muhammadu Buhari. The first one is the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. The second one is the second Niger Bridge. The third is Abuja, Kaduna, Zaria, and Kano Expressway. Unfortunately, among the 3 projects, it's only the Abuja-Kaduna that has experienced very serious setback. And this is the project that has no funding constraints at all, because there is presidential initiative on infrastructure where billions of money have been mapped out to complete the Abuja-Kano Expressway, to complete Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, and also the second Niger Bridge. Mr. President, we all know that the second Niger Bridge has already been completed and even been commissioned. Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is almost 85% completed. Now, unfortunately, this particular road, we are yet to see its completion. We cannot even assess the completion stage, particularly from here to Kaduna. As I said earlier, from Kaduna to Zaria, and from Zaria to Kano is almost completed. Those who traverse the road can testify to that. So, since there is no funding constraints, there should be no reason why the road should not be completed in good time. I agree there is security challenges, but our security men are already being mobilized. They have been asked to provide security 24 hours. So they should do all they can to ensure that the contractors are secured. But if the contractor get their men kidnapped, certainly they will be discouraged and they will leave the construction site. So I thought this additional information is important for the Senate to know. Thank you.
From what you are saying, there is no funding constraint on the road. So I think maybe what has impeded the completion is insecurity. And the Deputy Senate President has already observed that the situation has improved tremendously under the present administration. So maybe we just go straight to the prayers. Mandates the Senate Committee on Works, when constituted, to engage the Federal Minister of Works, Federal Minister of Finance, and FEMA to investigate all funds released for this important project from the award date to the present day, with the aim of finding the reasons for the delay in completing the project. Those in favor of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Call on the contractor to quickly mobilize to sites to ensure completion in the shortest time frame. Those in support of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Call on the security agencies to deploy personnel and equipment on the highway in order to curb the menace of criminalities along the expressway and its environs. Those in support of this prayer say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Mandate the Senate Committee on Legislative Compliance as constituted to ensure compliance with this motion. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. Any additional prayer? No. Oh, okay. Distinguished Senator Sadiku.
Thank you, Mr. President. Ohere Sadiku Abubakar is my name, from Kogi Central. Mr. President, because of the level of impact of the motion, I want to add this prayer that the motion raised this afternoon is of national concern, and I therefore want to add that the same Committee on Works, when constituted, should be mandated to accord similar attention to all other national road networks suffering from the same poor attention, so that we can have the same feeling of national concern. Because if you allow us, everybody will bring the situation of this road to the House all the time. But if we have the Committee on Works and they have similar attention to all other road networks, it will help us a lot. Thank you, sir.
Any seconder? Distinguished Senator Abamuro.
Thank you, Mr. President. I remain Senator Abamoro, representing the good people of the Benue South Senatorial District. I rise to second the motion ably moved by my colleague from Kogi Central. I so second.
Those in support of the motion are seconded. Say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. Yes. Distinguished Senator Babangida, am I right? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm Babangida Hussaini, representing the good people of Jigawa Northwest. The additional prayer to the existing prayers on the motion will be that the Senate directs the Federal Ministry of Works and Housing to utilize available balances in the palliative works to address the immediate need of the road. Thank you, sir.
Any seconder? Yes. Yeah, distinguished Senator Mohammed.
Mr. President, I wish to second the motion ably moved by Senator Babangida. I so second.
The motion, the additional prayer, as moved by distinguished Senator Babangida and seconded. Those in support say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. So let me thank our dear brother, distinguished Senator Adamu Lawa, for the motion on this all-important route, and to say that it is actually a major artery that affects the lives of all, not just those in the Federal Capital Territory, but the entirety of northern Nigeria. And of course, we will hope that when the Committee on Works comes on board, that they will pay special attention to this road, because it's an artery that affects the economic nerve center of this country. And I also want to commend the security services, as stated by the Deputy Senate President, for the improvement of security on this highway. It was at a time a very terrible situation where whenever you're on the road, you were not sure you will come back home alive. So thank you, distinguished Senator Adamu Lawa, for this all-important motion. Distinguished colleagues, before I call on the leader of the Senate, please permit me to congratulate distinguished Senator David Solomon Oma Jimikuta on your behalf on his birthday. Today is his birthday. Distinguished Senator, happy birthday to you on behalf of the 10 Senates. So let me lead out the Senate. From the leader of the Senate, he has requested that I should make this special announcement that all distinguished senators should pick up their forms from the sergeant at arms desk at the entrance into the chambers to indicate interest in the membership of the various Senate committees. Okay. The various leadership of the committees earlier announced were just for the chairman and vice chairman, vice chairman. So the composition of the committees will be as you indicate. But remember that by our rules, we cannot serve in more than 7 committees. And I know that we can't serve in more than 7. I do know that most senators are not effective in more than 3, highest 5, in terms of effectiveness. So don't go for up to 10 committees because you may not have time to attend all the sittings. Yeah, I wasn't a victim. So, the Distinguished Senator Taboa, you were presiding, and you know I'm right that many people are not actually effective in more than 3 to 5 committees maximum. But you can go up to 7 anyway. But you wouldn't be effective in more than 3 to 5 in reality. So it's not just to populate the committee, it's to ensure robust debate and very serious contributions. So please pick up your forms at the entrance. Of course, due to 1 or 2 observations, when we are announcing the full committees, even the full standing committees, the special committees we announce now, we may still tinker with 1 or 2 positions, either in the chairmanship or in the vice chairmanship. But of course, it's as a result of your request, because we must run an all-inclusive Senate and we must be a listening leadership. So and if we do so, we'll join it to announce when we are announcing the full one. Then the other special announcement is from the chairman of the East-West Road ad hoc committee on the East-West Road, and that there will be a meeting at 2 p.m. In meeting room 319. This is signed by Distinguished Senator Abdul Ningi. So all members of the East-West Road ad hoc committee will meet at 2 p.m. In room 319. Leader of the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. President and distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, having concluded today's proceedings on the order paper, I hereby move that the Senate do adjourn till Wednesday, 12th July 2023 at 10 a.m. Thank you, Mr. President.
The Minority Leader.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, distinguished colleagues. Mr. President, my name is Simon Madkon. I'm from Plateau State, and I represent Plateau North. I rise to second the motion ably moved by the Majority Leader that the Senate do adjourn till tomorrow. I so support. Second.
The motion has been moved and seconded that this Senate do adjourned to tomorrow, 12th. Tomorrow what day? 12th of July at 11 a.m. Those in support of the motion are seconded, say aye. Those against say nay. So the Senate is adjourned to 11 a.m. tomorrow